The local people knew exactly when the rain season comes and when the dry season sets in. The farmers knew when to plant and knew the harvest time. They would plan their farming activities well because the climate was definite. The rains were predictable and sufficient to support the crops. There was no need for irrigation. Water was available throughout the year. The forests were thick with a rich biodiversity. People depended on nature for their livelihoods with ease. Life was good. Unfortunately, the cherished climate has since changed. Today we are seeing strange things happening. Prolonged droughts, unpredictable rains, floods submerging villages, lakes and rivers bursting their banks, displacing families, and the proliferation of diseases associated to climate change. But what is climate change and how does it manifest?
Indeed, Ugandans know that we have been over the last 2-3 years, we have been in a situation where we are having too much water, causing flooding, and also resulting in high water levels. And these high water levels have basically happened in all our major water bodies, starting with Lake Victoria, Lake Albert, and Lake Choga. These are basically our 3 major water bodies.
A lot has been said about climate change. Whereas some people believe that climate change is real, others think it is just propaganda being spread by a section of people who are self-seekers. We visited a number of places in the Albertine region to see if actually climate change is real. We set off from Vision Group headquarters in Kampala and headed to Ntoroko district, located in the western part of Uganda. Our first stop was at the IDP camp in Katunguru village. The main activities here are fishing and cattle rearing. The fish business is very lucrative but done covertly because the government stopped fishing in the area. This camp dwells thousands of people. The communities here have no toilets and the hygiene is terrible. Mounds of human excreta are seen with thousands of blue flies hovering the entire area, jumping from the fecal matter to the drying fish. You can only be lucky if you leave the area without flies entering your mouth or fall into your eyes. Challenges here are many. The main permanent road was washed away by the floods. To access the place, the community constructed a temporary timber bridge that connects the island to the other side. Every user has to pay 2,000 shillings.
Impinduka yubwira habwa sazeno stiru tchalo mukubonabona habukuba amezi akasisa maju ngatwara mataka gakaito bitungwa enkoko nembuzi habukuba na sazeno tuzoroho nenti ikafa nyingi habukuba tukatutaina aturazita.
People's houses were ruined by the floods, leaving them with no choice but to build temporary shelters.
Twarugambe banza hano tuli mataka abantu ntupangisa atono nita abandi tuli mu rugudi tukombeka mu rugudi rwa government rundi rugudi rwa ragaga rushengo rukuroshinga ndugenda hanyanza kandi alimo abandi tutukwemara enzo tuwire mu kusakaza blanket.
Ntoroko district has over 3,000 people living in IDP camps as a result of climate change. These people had decent homes and lived a normal life.
The communities there are homeless. As I'm talking, we have over 3,000 people who are living in camps, internally displaced. So surely there is a lot of social factors in those camps whereby there are no sanitaries, the environmental factors, and even an issue of HIV spread.
In Kanara Town Council camp, the floods spread up to about 12 kilometers into people's homes, displacing 4 villages of Ntoroko North A and B, Chisenyi A and B, all in one parish. As a result, over 1,500 families were displaced.
Some families which have got some people who are thinking deeply are moving away from this place, but people who are here, this is our real home. We have nowhere to go. We are born from here, so you cannot tell me to go and forth and start up a life that is very hard. Let me be here.
Wano kutuka wano twatuka ku mwezi gwa mwenda omwaka ogwo gutwaka kuba amabega kati wano sawa zino tuliko omwaka gumu n'emyezi ngesatu nga tuli wano.
The people, however, have no clear idea of what caused the change in climate and the floods.
Njogere kituufu abantu bange banembeera enkyukakyuka y'obudde tebagimanyi kubanga tewaliwo omuntu wadde omwe yavaayo najja kubasomesa enkyukakyuka y'obudde kati tebagimanyi. Nange kenyini simanyi kiki ekyaleeta ekintu ekyo kubanga amazzi gaali wala nnyo olwaleero gajja ne gakoma wali abaawo ne basenguka enkya n'ogasanga eri abawale ne basenguka gajja bwegati.
We recognize that generally from 2009 October we have received more than normal rainfall. The amount of rainfall has been more than what would ideally, and that's why the prediction by ICPAC and also our Uganda National Meteorological Authority have indicated that we are generally having too much rainfall falling within a short period. And when rainfall falls too much within a short period, falling on highly degraded catchments with limited tree cover, with bare hills, with a lot of wetlands degraded, and so water doesn't have enough time even to go underground. A lot of it is running on the surface.
The camp has several challenges. The 900 people who stay here have to share 8 makeshift toilets. The toilets are shallow and only serve about 3 months before they get full. Mothers painfully lock up their children in their houses to go and make ends meet through prostitution.
What you're seeing here, people here had their homes, but because of these changes, we are here now in the camp, and it has affected us so much. Some mothers locks a child inside the house, goes out at night to a man to get something for food, for children. And this it has affected us so much.
Children here are confined in one place with all kinds of people. No wonder there are many cases of child pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. A number of girls aged between 12 and 14 have children with no responsible fathers.
Here, HIV is on its peak. HIV is on its peak because these old men, people who are infected, are going out with these young girls. And here, every young child you see, every girl of 12 years you see here has a child. There are so many unwanted people. Girls have given birth. Others, just of recent, there's one who died when giving birth. She gave birth to twins and died immediately. So really, it's on its peak.
Many people live like paupers. If they are not given what to eat, they starve. The government normally intervenes, but what they give is not enough. A remedy must be got for the people in Ntoroko generally, especially if we must save the future of young girls, but also empower the helpless people. Mujuni notes that the floods issue is no longer a small matter to be handled by the district alone.
We have been requesting government, because this challenge, it is beyond a local government. This is an issue of cabinet to sit and the gazette 5 miles of the park, and we will say to these people, because these people, they need a permanent solution.
The residents of Bukedde district have really tested the effects of climate change. Up to this day, they have never come to terms with what is happening in their area. Their grannies stayed here with no trouble. It would rain and the sun would shine with no loss of life or property as a result. With increased human activity in this mountainous area, everything turned upside down. The rain falls for days, causing the soil to loosen up and slide downwards, causing damage to gardens and homesteads.
We have discovered that there is water down in the soil, which is disturbing us, extending our land from up to down. Share ratio, inga kyo kamezi karubula. Ariko karubule kamezi kana ka mas. Yenyola kao sawa sabisala, dio balia baliryangu, dio la kukhaliha. Sakumanya kuulia baria halo kumwa hakolu 18 kimyaka kibere chenga ifashe kushusalira kunotawe yabangekhala. Aribone amalambe kimiko shimya binga bibiri. Mubukeyo paka kwa nisherero. Ari ni mubuka ino sasa wakulumasa kuli safe tawe.
As we traversed the village, we found this old man whose house was half buried by the earth that was washed from the upper part of the mountain. On the fateful day, the rain started at 7 a.m. and continued non-stop till 7 p.m. Peter is risking his life to continue staying in such a house, but has no choice because this is the only place he has. He lives in fear, but hopes that one day the government will relocate them to a safer ground. If we are to go by the claim that climate change is a result of human activity, then Ugandans have a lot to do to reverse its effects. It is claimed that each year, Uganda loses over 90,000 hectares of forest cover. Bugoma Forest is one example of serious deforestation. Philip Chihumuro, an environmentalist, says that forests are the only natural way through which we can address climate change.
Because the trees that grow capture the carbon, and then they are able to make sure that the global warming is stemmed, as opposed to the technological advancements where we have carbon capture and aspects like that. So it's very critical for us to have the forest restored.
Mohindo relocated from Kasese to Changwali and started growing maize. For about 8 years, everything was going on well until recently, when he realized that his yields had dwindled due to prolonged drought. He has now resorted to boda riding to make a living.
Ito abantu bahansi turi kubonabona habwe kibira habwe nshonga ekibira bakirireho enjura techagwa. So egine challenge ya mani nkanyo muntu wahansi atashomire habukuba tinyinaho ndaza ntashome omulimo gwanje nego kuhinga kunafunire challenge ejo nagamba kangaruke mu boda.
Climate change is happening in the households, actually in the communities. A woman steps out there, goes out to harvest her beans, but she can barely even have enough beans to serve her household. So those are already the effects of climate change.
Women are the most vulnerable who are feeling quickly the adverse effects of climate change, and they are also contributing towards climate change. Through this, they have degraded wetlands because most of the land in Africa is tilted by women. And they are the most land users. So they end up using whatever land is available, either in the forest, in the wetlands, in the swamps, so that they can get something small to fend for their homes, as most of the families in here in Hoima are women-led.
Environment experts tell us that cutting down Bugoma is a very big mistake we are doing.
Yeah, the trees help to modify the environment. The trees naturally, they enhance the surface roughness to slow down wind. Now, without the forest, that means you are like giving chance wind to go through it. That is no one case. But now, without the trees, that means the contribution from what we call evapotranspiration will be lost. That's why you find that the forests are influencing areas surrounding in terms of cool climate, but also in terms of becoming really moist most of the times in the year. So with the clearing of Bugoma, it will introduce a change in the local climate over that area. And once more, what would have been the original contribution from evapotranspiration would be lost. For that matter, the rainfall over that particular area is considerably expected to decrease, and at the same time, the local temperatures there expected to slightly shoot up.
If government doesn't come in strong to look at ways of keeping what is remaining intact, I would say that we are moving into a very dangerous time.
This is our home. It feeds us. The Alberta in Graben, for example, it has great endemism. Endemism means, species that are found only in this landscape. Actually, in Africa, it's the most biodiverse. So we are very lucky. When you talk about here, the species that are here, you have over 60 unique species of, reptiles just resident in the Alberta in Graben. Almost 60% of the birds in Africa are found here. So the plant diversity is immense. You're going to see many species getting lost, but also the livelihoods, because our livelihoods here are linked to nature specifically. So with climate change, our livelihoods are going to be threatened. I've already talked about food security. If we have climate change coming in heavily, and if it's coming up, you're going to find challenges with food security.
Ekihingwa kiito kitwatuhagamo akasente akaba guryo muceri beitu hati omuceri noreba tigukihingwa habwe shonga yo kugira ngo enjura tugitunga enjura kurungi.
Unfortunately, the people who would have protected the forest are squabbling.
In fact, also I have my private forest, which I kept for the last 10 years. This is where I was grazing even cattle. But I was pushed out by National Forest Authority. By the time I reclaimed it, then Hoima Sugar came in. Brought in some charcoal burners, timber cutters. In fact, it has been deforested very terribly.
Nanye ndareba kabire zindi ziri kuja kweyiza muri icyo kibira bari kwija bose amakara bashareye mbaho nanye nko muntu waherera ineke kibira nazayo nyuwe bananyibanyirukeho tinyine sente zo kubatugira.
One of my biggest concern, actually it's a worry, is that we see those that are supposed to help us protect our environment, where we have the forest, and those that are helping us much mitigate the issues of climate change because they help in rain formation. We look at them being in a lead of doing depletion. Because when we look at one of our biggest natural forests, that is Bugoma Forest, was given away by the kingdom, an institution that is supposed to protect the resource that we have, but also even to the animals that are staying in the forest, which we see now running out from the forest to the communities, and they are hurting people. And remember, we have chimpanzees in Bugoma. We have so far lost 2. So what happens to the rest? And so I think it's a big concern that has to be looked at if we are talking about climate action and we need to mitigate climate change.
Life in Mohocha IDP camp is not the best. The people dread every single day and curse climate change that caused them to leave their homes. Before coming to the camp, they used to have food any way they wanted. Today, they depend on government and well-wishers for food rations, something that is not sustainable. As always, women and children suffer most.
We have stayed in the IDP camp almost 1 year and around 7 months, if I can count very well.
They formerly have to use a homestead. They are now in a host family. So we have a lot to do also on the psychosocial support to these children. But also as a right as a children, they have the right to grow up in a good environment. But now these children are forced by nature to move to the camps.
Enkuba bwetonya amazzi gano ne gajjula mba sikyasobola kugenda sayidi eri kunoonyayo ebyokulya epiki ne zibeera nga tezisobola kuyitawo motoka ne zibeera nga tezisobola kuyitawo kati bye bizibu bye tufuna ebyo.
If you are still doubting that climate change is real, then you need to visit Mount Rwenzori. You will be surprised to find the snow that used to cap the peak has receded over 12.5 kilometers.
Climate change is real. We have seen a lot of changes. This is one of the most beautiful places, and one of the things which make it peculiar is the glacier, which is up there. Because of the changing in temperatures, the glacier has over the years reduced. Like 100 years ago it was 15, we had 15 square kilometers of glacier on top of all the peaks. Now we have basically about 1.5 square kilometers left. So it's a sign that climate change is real. But most importantly is that Rwenzori National Park is one of the only places which is conserved. And then outside the park, we have seen people cutting trees. Almost the land outside the park is bare. We are seeing this as a big challenge.
The beauty that we used to see on the mountain has disappeared. Previously, they would go to the mountain and you enjoy the breeze of that snow cappement. But I want to tell you that you reach the Rwenzori, the snow cappement is just receding every other time. We need to act as the communities around the mountain because this is our glory. Fortunately, Rwenzori Mountain is a World Heritage Site. So what will the world demand of us when it is lost at our hands?
Yeah, these days, because of the different towns coming up due to massive development, we have seen now us being hit by heat waves. Indeed, with the increasing temperatures, the glaciers the snow cover is decreasing, and the cover is warming up. Originally, they didn't have things of mosquitoes, malaria, but now it is there because now the temperatures are entering the breeding phase, so mosquitoes can breed there.
Government, civil society, including communities, have seen the negative impacts of poor environmental management, and they are coming into for conservation. We are seeing people planting now trees. Even the river banks, we are seeing people are planting now bamboo. We are seeing there is a good urge and stamina for people to really restore this thing because they have seen the impact of poor environmental management.
Bulisa is a clear example of the climate change we are talking about. They recently experienced unprecedented dry weather and unseasoned prolonged rains. These caused the lake to overflow, leaving villages flooded. The communities keep wondering what they could have done that annoyed the gods of the lake. Port Butiaba, 48 kilometers south of Bulisa district, was completely washed away. This was the main access port for the traders from the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. More than 5,000 people were affected by the floods, many of whom are now living in camps. There are about 400 homes at Kabolwa landing site camp. Seremos Kiza, LC1, Kabolwa landing site, claims that the cause of the floods is connected to oil discovery in the Albertine region, which consequently led to the change of climate in Bulisa.
We have been going through Boxy, that where there is oil and gas, in most cases, climate change. And when floods came in, I became suspicious. The bombs that they used to hit during the discoveries, I was worried they could have cracked the earth down there. Because the way the water was coming in, it was a threat to me. And most of our buildings cracked during that time of those bombs.
Seramos is bitter. He says that the authorities talked about the advantages of oil and not its bad side, even when the climate continues to change.
During that period, the oil concerned parties used to tell us about only advantages, not disadvantages. So even the climatic change, we are getting a lot of heat. We are sweating even day and night, which used not to happen during that time before the oil and gas discovery.
Kyo kizibu kya government gyaletikyo government kiza kutufumba nyizuka kurungi ho emyaka myenyuma tolobato mwizolo gwalingo tutwa nditwagire mwizolo ngolo kyo kichanka kyo kuwana kikyo wemerere nka kudi ati kumutanda gwa magali kudi okwajya muntu we muntu akuna kusara kwa kumwana wa mwizolo kono rundo mwizolo kwa kwa muntu akudi kichanga kisinkila kiendi kyonko baleti kizo kyati bakore mwana gwa fere gondi batandika kutaga ga chanka gaguo batekanga musibili batumira kyo kichanga kyo kiese kya magali kikyo ati meziga beninga kwiza gagire dongi sigese ngele mwaranse rutindo dongi dolo alusala kubandu kangiza gali mezi hoho mezi gakola kyani geiza akoba udwa tweriki twatwa hadi wako mezi gatembe kwa mugera dero gagatembiri jahada ansheri he mita zikudwa isatu na kento hade na mezi ni side gya kono he na mtauni kono.
On the other hand, Magabo Samuel, the chairperson of the Disaster Management Committee, believes that the gods are annoyed because such calamities wouldn't befall the community unaware.
For us who have lived along the lakes, we have lived with gods of the lake. The gods of the lake have their specific respect we used to accord them. We used to have the leaders of the spirits on each landing site. They were called the Balamansi. With modernization, these people have vanished. People stopped respecting them because of religion, and yet they were mediators between the people and the gods of the lake and the sea. And whenever not only floods would befall them, including drought, lack of fish, these people would call upon the community to contribute seeds to sacrifice to the gods. And that's how the relationship was always intermediated. There is that gap now that man can no longer communicate to the gods of the lake. And therefore gods can do anything. Whereas those days, the lakes would warn you through dreams and other things. They communicate through those custodians. Now the custodians are not there.
The head teacher of Wanseko Annex School could not comprehend how water managed to submerge his school that stands 1.5 kilometers away.
The school was 1.5 kilometers from the main shower and up to this place. So that the water, the flood moved up that distance. And the way how it came, for us, we couldn't manage it. We could not even expect it, but we found ourselves inside. For me, I was not even thinking about it because the distance was too big. But in the end, we found when ourselves were under the water has taken over.
In Bulisa, actually 4 schools have totally been submerged, and these include St. Padre Pio, which is in Wanseko Parish, Nile View, which is in Wanseko Parish, and partly Good Hope, which is also in Wanseko, because there was also a mass of water around it. With the private sector having been submerged, we're experiencing another challenge because Tiaba Infants and Tiaba Health Center were also totally submerged. Our biggest challenge is that they may not come back on board. I'm looking at an enrollment of learners of 5,429 failing to access education because of displacement by these floods.
Katuliyeyo wansi eyo jola bakatu wano tuli wagulu natuliyeyo wansi eyo hotel ngali wano amazi gageyongera bagamba amazi gali eyo wansi katugende kusona amazi ngatusanga amazi wasanga lero wano ekyo gasanga wali nitwebuza gana amazi gavaawa mbera wente nikatuka manyumba nituvaye eri nitusembera wotuka wanu lero ekyo gasanga katuka gutuseeko paka nitugenda wechite paka amanyumba gona nigagwawo.
I remember where the ferry was and where we were standing. That was almost 5 to 6 kilometers. The population which was here, which have relocated from this place, is huge. We have lost a factory, fish factory. We have lost a health center with all the infrastructure. This was a hotel. There was a hotel, there were nice beaches here, but they are all in the water. People have lost a lot of money, billions of shillings.
The general number of people affected by displacement is not less than 5,000 people.
A total of 8 primary schools, 1 health center 4, and a fish factory were all submerged. What still perturbs the community is the cause of the floods. Almost left with no options, some people of Bulisa have decided to appeal to their ancestors.
Within not more than 3 months, we shall have this ordinance passed, and we want it popularized because it is a strategic way the old people used to maintain the relationship between people and the environment. And you know, even in other cultures, even in Uganda, there were mechanisms of protecting environment other than having the law in place. For us, we had sacred sites. They would tell you that forest is for spirits. But when actually they intended to preserve trees in the area, and you would leave that catchment alone, you would not tamper with it.
Chibiro, the sweet village, endowed with salt mines, locally known as salt gardens. The local communities here have for over 100 years depended on the salt gardens for a living. Women and girls here have lived on salt mining as a business for generations. With this climate change, soon or later, this business may be no more, because the recent floods saw a number of gardens washed away.
Okutandika ntikyali baisiki bato ate atandike kukola munyogo ate banyina enkulu yitwe batandika kutwegesa munyo amaizi gakajula mu misiri yaitu ate batungawo kwemera ate bakozere bire bino amaizi gamazire kukola gagenda gampola mpola.
The change in climate has seen a change in the seasons. The rain is sudden and unpredictable. The sun is hotter, with 40 degrees or even above. Geneva, who has lost count of her age, says that what is happening is extraordinary.
Irabuli, wayabyaga munyogo bunyogurazamu. Nguraramu. Nundi biro bya bibi. Bitati bire binugwa. Kuko norazamu njura negwa. Ati kandi batandika kuhara bitaka ebyo tibiga ko kuba mpinduka. Mpinduka kuba mara kuhinduka biro bimaze kabiro 3. Kabiro 4.
Climate change is a worrying thing. With its visible effects, one wonders what will happen to the livelihoods of the people that have depended on this salt for over a millennium.
Ate nkanjura bwe banegwa mezi nigasirimuka mu nsozi omwo nejo sanga ijwire mu mabale ijwire mu mezi eno wakusemerere kugamba nyenkya kantule enjura emazire kugwa no mara hayi wiki yona otakakoraga kandi nohuro ina buzibu bwa kubota kwasire sente utakozere nobanza kandi kiora mu kusemeza kundura mabale galogeyemu ate nibo otandika ekora kurungi obwo obuzibu nibwo buli mu njura ekutusinsira misiri yaitu.
At the age of 5 years, Serena Baikara started processing salt. She is now 80 years and all she knows is salt processing.
Nyina nyoya nyegesaga nka muntu bwabana alima buga yoko niba mwana mutoto bamukwasa nfuka gendo olimi tukwata ruonka ruli ntwijana na nyole katandika kuuma nitandika kuuma nka mbienfune ebitu tubimanyire to oyo bigwaitu tukola kukulia buli na gura kagoye rundi kasukali
kuruga nkora hano guno musiri ngere kula sente zinyihamu zikunsomesa ziku pingi munifuna mu rwego kujwara mubiri bokuba gutaloti nkujwara enkaito zinkujwara byona mbire musigu mun nekindi zikujweka nabanyanya obona guno musiri gutusomeseza gutukolere bulikimu nigo bomezi boyitu nkaito gutaloti tulo titukuya titukusoma maiso mbeni ngonza kubanka nasi ninjanja abona ninjaga numukero ntujanja babukwa hano na kero ketu kino mibazi arobwire bwikane ebura nibalema batagiresere neolinda bakujanja bino joyana kufa no burwaire busa gonza kufa kubi buli muntu ayenda kale guno munyongo kora kale guli bomezi bwange baitu nkunihira maiso konda akasoma kulungi nja kufuna mulimu obanda akafuna yakunkwata mukona akansomesa mpaka mulimu ngufuna hamunyo hano ntulugaho abuna ito tufunira ka chance mpaka inakwata mugenzi wa mukono nawo muyiha munyo bokuba nikuwa mukuba mukuzire ni mukoro munyo ne gubalolera mpaka nawe nampata muno omutwala lusoza asoma.
Melan Kanyesije, at only 10 years of age, looks at salt as the only means into her future. She started processing salt at the age of 6. Salt is the only source of livelihood to her family. At her tender age, she is the breadwinner. Her mother has just given birth and therefore cannot work at the garden. The father is a fisherman but stopped going to the lake because his boat does not meet the recommended standards. Melan has to double her efforts to feed the family and to raise money for her school fees.
Musiri nkora mugwa mama wange muweke mubumbanya bize bintu kurungi nkatembe nyiyamo mitware 5 ningura obyo kulia ni temba boda ni sirimuka nezindi sigairo zentuzeyambisa abagenda isomera nkya hambya sente zigenda kunanga kunsusulia school fees kwena some kurungi mfoke nasi benasi ninanga ninjanja babantu nanga eirwaro
hot spring egyo nkukagirozere teyoma teyongera eikalirao kandi hot spring egyo nyomu kumanya kwange niyeretereze niyechumba munyo niyeretereze munyo guno kurubaho hot spring etaroho no munyo tuguro kandi hot spring egyo itwe enzarwa za hanu niyo tunaba ojja kwesanga wadoserulize mu kyaro muno tojja kusanga muntu wena aina biwaire bwa skin diseases tiziro maizaga tuyamba muno na bobo ine nkohoro ogendayo kuli nofuna kikopo nonywaho noba kurungi kandi na abantu abandi abaruga ahero atali mukika rukini baruga mukichweke ebindi gabayamba bayija amalira sumuruirwe nagaruka yali kurungi muntu yizira ali muroire nagaruka yali kurungi.
The floods did not spare oil wells either. Out of the 8, only 4 are still visible, though underwater. 2 out of 8 geothermal points were also submerged. If you have ever used Masakambara Road, then you must have seen a big charcoal and firewood market. It is called Bukedde, found in Chiruhura district. The market is directly fed with charcoal from the main cattle corridor.
Business area hempango nenku no kutunda enku no kutunda makara no kutema ebiti mbabitema miringo ebiri abari kutekateka ngo bayino bakiriyaringa za farm zawa kibere bakahora byamutama ensiyone kwateine akenda ngo abihemu ahereza abihingi ngo bahingi bahatema makara rero base kumukiriyaringira ekishakekyo abandi naba bari kureba amakara nka business niyo business ibine akabata bayine ntasiye ndiju nabo bagotya ngo bateme imiti botya ngo baze kutunda.
For many years, the main source of livelihood in these areas has been cattle and its products. Farmers in Chiruhura changed their farming systems in order to increase their productivity. They sold off their local breeds to acquire exotic ones that produce more milk and beef.
In the first place, we had Ankore cows. We had no issues that needs money, like taking children to school, like building shops, feeding centers, and that comes into town councils, like buying cars, like building houses, as much as development. Now when we came to development, we closed from local breed to exotic breed so that we can get enough milk to get money, so that we can do our businesses as the development demands.
What they didn't know is that the exotic breeds required a clean and well-organized environment that necessitated the cutting of most of the trees, leaving thousands of hectares of land free of tree cover.
Hakarimu ebishaka bingi bishikira haiguru otari kubasa kureba nkoko ruguru mu kabungu kariya na kuriya abo kwataka kiriyaringa ebishaka abo kutunga ente zenjungu abo kwente zenjungu tiri kwenda bishaka twakiriyaringa ebishaka ensi yona yaba yatangara kuyatangara hatunyo kundu kukireba nyonkanye hatensi yatandika kuoma.
Government netusomesa ebitura okutwa kutunga sente mbwene kam farming tugambira ngo tisenjungu konga kikomaho hata njungu zo kuzishemeye kuri sibo mu kicweke cyitu naro munsi ya yititumu tuba kutogesa iyo umuntu tandika ko yiyayiro okora rise njungu hadi ncyo kushanya ntema tiyona tukajimaraho ngwito ntekateka ngo njungu tikwenda kuturumiti.
As expected, milk and beef production increased tremendously. However, this came at a huge cost. The locals believe that the climate change they are experiencing now is a result of mass tree cutting.
We've been telling our communities to stop cutting trees because we have so many people who are burning charcoal all around. Even in this cattle corridor, it's a habit now. I think that's why the rain is going.
We came to understand it very late. And now we are coming back to our Ankore cows. We are now coming back.
Haza honshomesa ya government, yani shomesa ba farmers, wija kuhinduka. Nibakora ibishemerere kurekaho farm zirige, insinegaruka netebeka. Ibindi nibabibyara ebirumunke ebibe kureba umfamu yitu nibabireka mu nibareka kubitema insinegaruka nebaje nibisharara nibareka kubihingamo insinegaruka netebeka na habaho kushomesa kwa government.
In the neighboring district of Zimbabwe, the situation is no better. Deforestation, unpredictable seasons and water scarcity has become a norm.
In the past, we even used to get some seasonal rivers. Some people could predict that in October we could get such and such amount of rain. Then they do some planting. People go to their gardens, plant whatever they feel they want to plant. But this one has totally changed.
nyoni ngira ngo nokutema emiti ariko abantu nibatema munonga emiti kandi kwa kutema omuti tagarraho gundi oriyo yija yagura famu takutema emiti yona akajezamu akaharumwe emisa emyerameino konka hataba kukira hatwo kushuma okwifa omu mahamba toyineho kushanga muti.
We have destroyed the environment unknowingly because we want to graze our animals in clean farms. We resort to cutting down the natural trees, natural forest, and without replacing. So that is another economic activity that has destructed the environment indirectly without our know.
Looking at the gardens, it is evident that there is food scarcity since the majority depend on homegrown crops for food. Climate change is for real. As crops struggle to grow within the harsh weather, women and children equally struggle to look for water as much as firewood because all the trees in the area were cut for charcoal. Chiza Dick, a native of Mawokota, relocates the good moments they had.
Siye yatonyanga edda nga tukyali bato. Era ffe utwabeeranga abato enkuba yatonyanga mu bisenyi omwo nga gye mufulumye eyo ng'amazzi gajjula era nga tukkirira mu nsenyi omwo okuwuga. Wabeerangawo emiti mingi n'ebibira ebyasobolanga okusika amazzi enkuba n'esobola okutonya n'ewera. Kye ndowooza nti kati tekikyaliwo. So y'ensonga lwaki nti n'abalimi n'abalonzi ekintu ekyo kitukosezza olw'enkyukakyuka y'obudde ekyuka nga toyinza kugibala n'oyola ki n'ogiteekawo.
Konka hati kunkuja ninyetegereza obwire obutoyinaho okushenyaruko n'obwakuza nkaha hifo tubakwikiriza kuhihaho ruko tutuyina hitukwihanku kandi hati nindeeba obwo obwire obutuhikiremu omushana nigutoosya ebitukuhinga byona bifa n'obwakuba guri omwana nk'ogwo hatahi gwahika nigubaasa kukwata omushana omwana gwona gufa hatahi nka sizoni egi tuhingire omushana kaaka ebihimba byafa ebinyobwa byafa shana nk'obutukuza kutungayo noshani nk'obucoori empindukahinduka y'obwire nindeeba hati negenda nehindukahinduka.
For a long time, Sembabule has been known for maize and milk production, but due to climate-related complications in the district, communities painfully seek for government's intervention for food.
See, the crop we are having here is maize. Assuming it was coffee, we would plant some trees. But you can't plant maize and a tree. So they resort cutting the tree so that they can produce what? Maize. So since we still have that crop in place, we don't think that we shall plant more trees. No.
Obutonde bw'ensaabasinga bayinza obutakitunuulira nnyo nti n'endwadde ez'ensolo, endwadde ez'ebirime, obutonde bw'ensi bwe bwonooneka era byonna endwadde ezo zeeyongera. Kati Sembabule kumpi ffe abali mu Katukoldo ffenna Sembabule, Gomba, Yantonde, kati kalusu taggwaawo. Kirivudde ku kubeera nti obutonde bw'ensi tubukoze eki. Ebirime kasooli teyalwalanga kuliibwa biwuka kutuuka.
Whereas the solution lies in the hands of the communities, the district officials have been frustrated.
Some people, whenever the district decides to come in, the farm owners claim that they are clearing their farms because you cannot prevent somebody from clearing his own or her farm. So it has become a very big problem. It's going out of hand. I think it's high time the government should come in and protect the environment, because the way things are going, if it could continue like that, the district environment officers should be empowered to be with full powers on how to protect the environment on the ground. Other than that, we are likely to get into a lot of problems, which I feel if it's not reversed, things may go out of hand.
Local governments levy a tax on charcoal produced here. They believe that this is a step towards stopping charcoal burning. Sembabule and Chiruhura are facing the same problems. There is a need for a system that can enforce limited charcoal burning if we are to save our environment.
We must enforce this program to stop cutting trees in all this cattle corridor. And we've been telling people, but they don't respond. Because there must be that enforcement. If you find that cutting tree, you must be arrested. If not, everything is going. Farming, plantations, water. We Israelis, because now here there is no desert. But that's where we are going.